I also just want to echo my thanks to Chris for hosting us, and to Nick and Stephen for agreeing to have a little chat with us. It really was a pleasure meeting you both, working with you both, and surfing with you both while I was on the West Coast. In Nick's case, surfing on the same board, on the same wave on several occasions. But yeah, just how we're going to structure today is we're going to be looking at a bit of the sort of the outcomes we found in my research alongside the amazing Jimmy Miller Memorial Foundation. We're going to look at the sort of the scientific findings we found, but then we really want to tie those into the experiences that have been had, or the things that the guys have seen while taking part in the surf therapy programs they have. So that's kind of the framework we've got. We've got a few different things we're going to discuss, and then we're going to leave plenty of time at the end for questions. I'm sure all kinds of things are going to spark in your wonderful minds, and please do write them down, put them in the chat box, whatever works for you. So yeah, we'll just crack straight on. One of the first and one of the foremost things we found when we were doing the research alongside Jimmy Miller was this idea of respite. This idea that when we go in the water, we tend to leave everything else on the beach. And the discussions I had with veterans in LA was that something about surfing just demanded so much focus in that moment, demanded so much of their sort of brain activity, that there's no space for, some of the negative emotions or whether it be flashbacks or other things that can be associated with various challenges that individuals may face on transitioning out of the armed forces. Sorry, armed forces, that's very British of me, but out of the Marines in this case. So yeah, this respite seemed to be down to the focus. It seemed to be down to the idea that, the ocean really doesn't give you a break when you're in the water. It doesn't, whether it's, catching a wave, having an amazing wave, going along it, whether it's sort of working your way back out during a massive set and it just keeps hitting you, or, I know Nick in particular does love a good wipeout. So whether it's you sort of falling from the top of the wave or something like that, it really just demands all of your focus. And yeah, that's the sort of the science we found around it. I'd love to throw it to the guys now and hear sort of your perspective. Is that something that resonates with you? Nick, given I've just introduced your love of a good wipeout, maybe we can just like pass it over to you. And yeah, does that resonate with your own experiences?
I mean, totally. Any type of movement is medicine. And then when you add surfing into it, you just get the qualities of nature and just the cleansing of the waters. Yeah, and you said it best. You have to be focused on what you're doing. You go out there with whatever problems, whatever issues you're having, and if you're focused on those problems, the ocean's going to remind you that it's there. So yeah, you get out there and it's like this, it's like you said, it's this escape. It's this place to just check out in a positive way. As Chris mentioned, I did struggle with addiction and I used to check out, with drugs. And now I can actually just go out and be with ocean, be with other people. Even if I don't know anybody else in the water, I'm just there connecting with other people. And I'm able to let go of all that crap that I brought with me. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing just to get out there and just relax.
And yet, Stephen, does that
so I'll add on to what Nick was saying too. From my experience with military medicine and things like that, was they tended to over-medicate our guys. They'd come in with a physical injury and they'd give them medicine. If they had anxiety, depression, more medicine. And then those would then have adverse effects on their sleep or things like that. So then they would give them more medicine for that, right? And surfing was a way of, kind of reducing those medical or those medicinal loads because of the focus that it demanded. Because you're present, you're on the wave, you're thinking, you finish your session, you're physically tired. Sometimes you're mentally tired because of the work. And that allowed our guys to then, reduce their dependence on some of these drugs and reduce their dependence on, taking a pill for everything, and instead, getting out in the water and then getting out with the other guys.
Yeah, amazing. And Something that actually we found in this study, which was really interesting, is a lot of surf therapy participants, when they were discussing this focus, were actually listing elements of what we call flow states, which is, some of you may have come across flow states before, others of you may have not. Flow states is the sort of psychological theory behind being in the zone, to use a colloquial term. Flow states are predominantly actually studied in terms of performance sports. So how to, there's a lot of studies on flow with regards to golf, getting in the zone. So your short game, the thing that affects your short game most is all psychology. It's also been studied in terms of business, in terms of education. And I know certainly the military have explored it from a performance side of things as well. But some of the indicators we really saw in the study were around total immersion, euphoria. My favorite indicator for flow states is one that every surfer knows, which is the sort of temporal distortion, that idea that time seems to move faster or slower. There's the classic morning of the earth when he's in the barrel and time slows down. But also just, I'm sure everyone who's been in the water can relate to this, that you go in the water for a 2-hour session, it feels like it's 10 minutes sometimes. Yeah, just those ideas of sort of those euphoric feelings, those feelings of temporal distortion. I mean, guys, I'm sure you've experienced them. Yeah, are they something that I think I remember that you definitely reported some of those to me when we discussed it a year ago, but yeah.
Yeah, and that, you're right, that passage of time just allows you to clear your mind as well. And you get out of there with a new perspective on your day, and possibly the things that were crowding your mind and preventing you from sleeping because you're just processing all of those informations, either past or present issues. When you're dropping into that wave and you're making that good turn, that's what you're thinking of, and you're thinking of the next time you want to do it as well. And yeah, time flies, and then it's time to go to work sometimes, which
Yeah, in yoga, I mean, we call it a flow. So we are literally just flowing with our bodies, with our breath. If you had surfing with our board, just that internal connection with everything, in which everything else just fades away. Nothing else matters but that moment, but your breath. Yeah, it's just an awesome feeling.
Yeah, it's that really grounded idea of being in the moment. I think there's a lot of discussion around mindfulness in the world right now. And some of it has been, in my opinion, quite commercialized, and mindfulness is different things to different people. And I think we see a lot of people who really enjoy surf therapy and get that mindfulness when they're in the water are reacting to that very sort of sensory, that very active, that very physical, embodied kind of mindfulness that maybe that maybe others struggle with, or maybe that people who enjoy surf therapy struggle with some of the more quiet mindfulness that has maybe become a bit more mainstream. But it is important to remember, I think, that mindfulness is not one single thing that everyone should do. Mindfulness is a variety of things that's very individual. And we've been talking about surfing right now, and I've been doing, when I do a lot of my interviews around my research, a lot of people ask me about what surf therapy is. And something I'm always very clear about is surf therapy is not just going surfing. I'm sure we have a lot of surfers on the call who go surfing regularly for their enjoyment. I'm sure they do get a lot of benefits out of the surfing, and some of that may be tied to the stuff we've just discussed. But surf therapy involves a lot of other components. And one of the core components we found when we were working with JMMF was the creation of what we called a safe space. And this safe space that they created, the intervention, whether it be through the talking circles, whether it be through the support offered in the water, whether it be through, this was my favorite thing, coming from Scotland and being able to sit on a beach and have fresh pizza delivered. I mean, that blew my mind when I first went out there. But this real family that was created around the intervention. And when I was doing interviews for my research, that comparison to a supplementary family, a supplementary social support system that a lot of individuals said they were looking for and couldn't find, they were finding at the beach within the surf therapy programs. And that safe space was really defined by, peer support, by a lack of judgment. You could go as you were. It didn't matter if you're having a good day, a bad day. You could just go as you were. You could share how you're feeling. And it really came out of the study that this family, this beach family, we actually called it in the research a beach family, was really something that was supporting individuals who were taking part in a huge way. Guys, what's your experience of that? Stephen, should we jump to you first this time?
Yeah, for sure. Because those of you who don't, travel in military communities or have a lot of military friends, I mean, we kind of see it as a family, right? As this sense of connection with our other servicemen and women. And, the population we were dealing with, they were now removed from that a little bit. And they're going to then go back out into the world and lose that brotherhood or sisterhood that they had with their fellow Marines. And participating in these surf therapy programs specifically allowed them to know that, other people care. Other people care about them. And when you're making a connection in a physical activity like surfing, you're establishing that bond through a common connection, right? And where they used to have a common connection with their fellow Marines, now they're building that with these surfers, and a community of people that cares about them, and showing that they care by, teaching them these hard skills and going out on the waves and getting wiped out with them, or taking the wipe out for them sometimes. And then coming back on the beach and just talking about life. So yeah, definitely, Jamie, I definitely saw that resonate with the sense of community and the ability of these young men and women to see that someone cares about them, and not just through words, but through actions as well.
Yeah, that was beautiful, Stephen. I mean, that camaraderie that I had in the Marine Corps, and I mean, once I got out, I lost it. I mean, I was stationed on the East Coast, but I'm from the West Coast. So I lost that group of guys that I was, just so close with. So when I got back here, I was searching for something, and, that's when I started getting into trouble and to all that other stuff. So I had to find another outlet. And that's what is so important about creating that safe space. Because, people just want to be seen. That's what it all boils down to. People want to be seen, recognized, understood. So when you create that safe space, you create an activity like some obstacle or activity, something to bond over. Then that builds that trust, and from that trust, then you can just open up and just start sharing whatever you need to share. Just letting all that shit out. Forgive my French.
No, and I think, Nick, you're exactly right. And then that bond just continues, right? I know several of us are still involved with other veterans groups where we have just chat windows that, hey, we're going to go link up, at this spot or this other spot for a session. And it continues that bond, and then it just grows and brings more people in.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I love that. And it ties back to that sort of, when we do research and we pick things like us calling this a beach family, we're not doing that to sound fluffy and nice. We're doing it because the sort of characteristics that were described then, and you guys are describing perfectly now, resonate so well with a family structure. Families don't exist for 2 hours on the beach and then it's done. It was really, this is a discussion I used to have with Chris all the time around Jimmy Miller. Is the Jimmy Miller Memorial Foundation sort of somewhat like a one-day event, but actually they're not, because the same group of people are coming back, to every single session, and they're supporting each other, and they're supporting each other out of the water. I experienced myself, like Nick with yourself, you introduced me to Eric, who obviously, you've pretty much got family through surf therapy, and you brought him down, and yeah, just the way this support structure goes so much more beyond helping each other onto a surfboard or helping each other or sharing a slice of pizza. It is something much more powerful, and being able to share those things, whatever they may be, it's such a huge part of starting to overcome those things. So the safe space really is foundational to the amazing work I saw on the West Coast. And actually, safe spaces are something, they're one of the few things that seem completely universal to successful surf therapy programs around the world. Whatever population they're working with, every successful surf therapy organization I've seen hold that safe space. I was really interested in something you said there around the sharing of an activity, or the that sort of actually doing something together and how that makes it somewhat more powerful. Do you mind, I think you both sort of touched on that, but do you mind just expanding on that a bit more for us?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's like any type of what's the word I'm looking for? Any type of struggle that you're going through, whether it be physical, emotional. If you're going through it with somebody else, you know, that camaraderie, that bond. I mean, just like, you know, Steve can attest to this. You know, that esprit de corps that we get from just going through stuff with somebody else. It builds this unbreakable bond because you two both can connect with the struggles, connect with the feelings that went through it. And from that, that's where, I mean, that's the building blocks of relationship building, of trust, of just opening up to another person.
Yeah, I totally agree with Nick. I mean, there is a bond between, you know, Marines that have deployed together or done things together, and it just kind of naturally brings them on the same kind of thinking and able to share, right? And that can then translate then to our experiences with surf therapy, because you're overcoming struggle together, rather than just going to, you know, a sterile therapist office or something like that.
Yeah, you touched on something very cool there as well. Like, just what do you, I'm almost conducting a research interview here now, but what do you think it is about the beach in comparison to you know, an office with fluorescent light bulbs and maybe a recliner chair if you're lucky? But what is it, do you think, that about the beach that does create something different in those kinds of discussions?
I think definitely the experience of the guys and ladies that I have dealt with, right? People, they don't want to be coddled. They want challenge. They want adrenaline. They enjoy physical activities, right? And I think Nick and both you said that before, right? You form this bond through doing. You form a bond through action and through a common experience, like surfing or serving the Marines, right? Where a sterile environment with a therapist, I'm sure, you know, you develop a bond after a while, but there is really no shared experience there. I don't think that you get that when you're in the water or on the beach with your fellow surfers or fellow service people.
Yeah. I mean, sure. Like the thing about surf therapy, I mean, it doesn't feel like therapy. You're not sitting on the chair while somebody's, you know, yapping at you the entire time. And sure, talking about your feelings is great. Writing about your feelings is great. Yes, you need to do that in order to get stuff out. But when you add the physical to the emotion, have balance with that. You need to work the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, all those three things working together to become that whole person, is, you know, it causes you to become that whole person.
Absolutely. And that grounding that seems to happen at the beach and in the water, and yeah, it's absolutely fantastic to have seen. It's been a privilege to have seen it, and I celebrate all the surf therapy organizations around the world, but obviously the focus of this is Jimmy Miller, and I really do want to celebrate them for the safe space that they do hold for veterans and for other populations that they serve. I want to come on to one other sort of thing that really came out of the study that we were exploring in LA, and that was this idea of mastery, which is a scientific jargon word, but it's essentially the idea of it's about self-efficacy. It's about overcoming something or learning about something or learning to do something. And the important thing is not so much what you've learned to do. So for example, in surf therapy, the most important thing often is not that we've learned to surf, but it's learning that we're able to learn to surf again. And something that seems to come up a lot for participants at JMMF was sometimes when they were transitioning out of the forces, there were a lot of barriers to what sometimes were quite simple things. I remember speaking to a Marine who was just really struggling with big supermarkets and just the the stimulation that was coming with the noises and the stuff, and just how busy it was. For them, that triggered certain things. But actually, overcoming something really difficult that they saw in terms of surfing, they thought they'd never be able to surf, and that gave them the confidence to actually try and overcome these other things they were experiencing in their daily lives. Many people we speak to, even just getting in the water for the first time, or putting the wetsuit on, or going into the surf. It doesn't even have to be standing up on the bomb set of the day. It can be these little challenges we overcome, each step supported by our safe space, by our beach family. But each of those little steps is like a little victory. It's a little reminder that actually, we can do these things. And guys, do you think that, is that something that resonates with your own or other veterans that you know's experiences? Maybe Nick, should we go to you to start?
Sure. I mean, you said it in one word: confidence. I mean, first and foremost, there's nothing like, getting up on that first wave. That feeling is just so invigorating. But then that needs to translate into, everyday life. I remember, because the surf therapy isn't once a month. I mean, it's great, but from that time I caught my first wave, I loved it. I knew it was something I wanted to do a lot. So I needed to start going by myself, but I was terrified to go by myself. I always needed somebody there with me to, hold my hand, to walk me out and all this stuff. Not everybody's available all the time. So I had to, grow a pair and finally get out there by myself. I guess the way to put it, the pain of not surfing finally outweighed the fear that I was having. So yeah, I mean, that in itself is just such a confidence booster that, what surfing taught me is, if you're scared, do it anyway.
Yeah, Nick, I think Nick and Jamie kind of covered this topic pretty well. I mean, it's really good just to see the look on the young people's faces, right? Some of them, they come from all over the country, and some had never been in the water before, right? Never had touched the ocean before. And to be able to see their confidence grow, and then their smiles as, they're standing up on a wave, or wiping out and then still popping back up and smiling again. So that level of confidence is really good to see. And, hopefully that then translates to other facets of their life.
That's awesome. And you both sort of touched on something there that is, and especially with Nick, with your discussion of failure and the discussion of wipeouts just then, Stephen, like in the military, there's often this perception that, failure is not an option, and we train that failure is not an option and things. And obviously, in real life, failure happens every day, whether it's in, our social lives, whether it can be things completely out of our control, but failure does happen. And if we're not prepared for that, I guess, it can feel a lot worse than it has to. And it sounds like, learning those things, learning that, just learning to overcome the fear of going out by yourself, or learning that, the wipeout we have is not the end of the world. I know that doesn't apply to you, Nick, with how much you love a nosedive, but yeah, like learning that the wipeout is not the end of the world, that what we're going to do is we're going to come up from under the water, we're going to grab our board, paddle back out and grab another wave. They sound like such simple lessons, but when they're reinforced with the physicality we've already discussed, and with the support of the beach family we've got, it seems it really helps them to transfer from, within that intervention space out to sort of our everyday lives. And something else I just wanted to ask you guys about, because both of you are not only veterans who do surf therapy, but you are both surf therapy veterans, in that you've been doing this for quite a while. And both of you have experiences in different ways of supporting others to access surf therapy. And I think that's one of the really beautiful things that does happen in the sector, is we see a lot of people who have maybe experienced surf therapy for the first time, to support themselves, go on to then, recognize the importance it has and support others to either access it or actually support others in the water. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey, about that sort of transition from almost being a participant to supporting others?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I would mind to just keep it for myself. I need to give it to others. I mean, Chris started me on this journey, and when she asked me to do something, of course, I'm going to help her out. That's why I'm here. Helping others is paramount to just get out of yourself. Because when you're there for another person, you automatically forget all the crap that is going on in your life because you are there for another human being. And I mean, and there's beauty in that.
Absolutely. And Stephen, for yourself, obviously, with your role with the Wounded Warrior Battalion, can you tell us a bit about that sort of transition where, well, that sort of that role of supporting others to access this and getting it to become, you know, what I would call mainstream, you know, this when it's being incorporated fully into the Wounded Warrior Battalion like that, you know, people are seeing it's working and people are accepting it and wanting to do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. And I think Nick captured it, right? It's about helping others, and giving guys and ladies access to these other things that they might not have tried. And you know, as active duty in the work time, you know, sometimes you need to nudge people a little bit, to get them out of their comfort zone and do new things. And I think, you know, back then that was my role, to nudge people, to try these new experiences. And even now, you know, when I serve with new guys or with people that are adaptive or things like that, it's just, you know, being able to, you know, just be there and be quiet, and be supportive, while they're experiencing new things. So, yeah, nothing really else more profound to add about that. Sorry.
No, that's perfect. And yeah, just sort of, we're coming up to the end of our, sort of not far off the end of our time, and we want to leave plenty of time for questions. But I remember sort of speaking to both of you about this back when I was in America. But where do you see the future of surf therapy for veterans in the United States? Do you feel this is something that can become like even more widespread? Do you feel, I know we've got some other amazing veterans organizations sort of in the call with us, but how far do you think surf therapy can go in supporting our veterans, not only in the States actually, but around the world?
So I'll start there, Nick. I mean, I would like to see it be mainstream, like, you know, kind of how it's starting to grow a little bit, but, you know, through the VA, right? You get a prescription, or, you know, and your therapist is, you know, prescribing a surf therapy session, that you're going there and meeting with a therapist on the beach and surfing and doing that. But apart from that, also, it's always about, you know, for me, grassroots veterans organizations as well. You know, it's just veterans helping veterans, not necessarily through the VA, but just these groups of guys and ladies who get together, who enjoy surf, enjoy, you know, telling stories and things like that, and just being a part of each other's lives and establishing that community. So like Nick said, you don't feel like you're isolated once you leave the service. So kind of a twofold answer, right? One, you know, officially kind of through the VA, and then another is just really, you know, people helping people.
That's
awesome. And Nick, how would you like to see it spread?
Yeah, I mean, Stephen touched on it. Stephen touched on it earlier, when he talked about how they're just pumping up the guys with, you know, with drugs. All those medicines are just, they're screwing them up. And also therapy. So yeah, like having just all is necessary. It is vital for the guys to just find other ways to their issues rather than, you know, just popping a pill, because, you know, pills are not the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's one of our great goals. I can see Chris has her artwork in the back of our house, but it's one of our great goals at the sort of International Surf Therapy Org is that one day surf therapy will be prescribed as readily and as easily as some prescription drugs do seem to be done at the moment. That gives us, we've finished a couple of minutes early, but that gives us more time for questions. Chris, would you like to take over? And I'm sure we've got a few people with a few questions watching. Again, I just want to say a massive thank you to Nick and Stephen for being so honest and open, and yeah, just thank you for sharing. It's a privilege, guys.
Yeah, ditto. I cannot say thank you enough. I actually had the real privilege of being the program manager with JMMF while Stephen was the commanding officer with the Wounded Warrior Battalion, and of course getting to know Nick, and so much, Jamie, of your questions. I mean, they really touched home. I think I wanted to answer a couple of them, but I did want to interject about how surf therapy is so unique because of its very nature, right? Our method of intervention really encourages equality. And I said this at every session, so I apologize to all the JMMFs that have heard me say this a million times. But when I was running the sessions, I just would say it didn't matter what ails you, right? What various abilities you possess or didn't possess. Like the ocean, surfing is the great equalizer. And it doesn't care about how big your house is, the car you drive, how much money you have in the bank, or how many followers on Instagram. The minute you get down to the beach, we're all the same. So I think that what makes surf therapy so special, which you touched on, Jamie, is the individual programs really build these communities and families and support systems where you're instantaneously connected. And here's what I've come away with that's so special, because Nick and I are friends, because Stephen and I are friends now, and meeting them through surf therapy, the benefits often are as good as traditional therapy. So you get the impact of conventional treatment, but you remove the artificial boundaries that you find with doctors, psychologists. And I mean, I always ask this question: when's the last time you sat at your dentist office or your doctor's office and started a conversation with the person sitting next to you? When is the last time you did that? Have you ever done that? And so surfing, we get down to the beach, we're so hyper focused on what the waves are doing and what it looks like out there, and where are the dolphins and where are the whales and how many birds are flying around us. And we lose all of those, sort of implied boundaries that you have usually with your doctors and even in your doctor's office. Of course, our office is the beach, and we have replaced the couch for a surfboard. So Jamie, thank you so much for all your work with JMMF, and Nick and Stephen, it's been really a pleasure to get to work with you both with JMMF. So questions, who's got some great questions here? I'm sort of trying to read the chat at the same time. Does anybody want to pop off of your mute and just chime in? We would love that. Stephen and Nick and Jamie would love that.
Yeah, I've got one. It's Richard Stent from Ocean Mind in Australia. Look, we're the same as well. We've worked out that surfing, the therapy is also about getting the children, the carers, the mothers, the dads. We get a lot of mothers. We don't get a lot of dads, which is, I find, very sad. But afterwards, we've had the sessions, and we sometimes spend another 2 hours talking to them. Often a group of mothers will bring food. So we sit down, if it's warm, when it's on a warm day, and we'll just share food. So, and that's just as, I find that just as rewarding as a mentor, to find out what they're doing, just having a chat, having a goss. Because there's not a lot of dads, I end up telling them about their roof racks and what straps they need to buy and how to get the surfboard on the car and where to go and stuff. So, yeah. And Steve, I like your Huey model. I'm an ex-military guy. I did 20 years in the New Zealand Air Force. So, and yeah, we had a squadron of 14 Hueys, and we rescued a lot of people. So I've done search and rescue and stuff, and yeah, did my time in New Zealand and Australia. So nice to see you guys. The military guys haven't disappeared.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you.
Hey, can I add on to Richard's comment there? I mean, so far, like as military active, we get isolated with our people that are all like us, right? And so I think his point where you bring in different people from different walks of life and mentor and then gain that experience. They might not know about roof racks or different, companies or businesses or other opportunities out there. So that kind of just mentorship with a more diverse group of individuals is very worthwhile.
Also, to add on to what Richard talked about, I guess to put it, the session after the session. When you're breaking down, when you're talking to the individuals. Sure, the first session is great. That's where you get to know people. But the session after the session, that's where like the individual connections are made. That's where you get to have those one-on-ones, those little bits of interpersonal conversations where you might be able to get a little deeper.
Oh my gosh, I love that. We used to always say, we'll break bread together. Richard, to your point about eating food, we'll break bread and have those deep conversations, those deeper conversations. I love that. So Jody's got a question. Jody, I'm going to read this. And she says, we hear a lot about surfing as a form of therapy for PTSD and addiction. Can we hear a little bit about the why? What is one area in particular that is addressed? It's helpful to understand this from someone firsthand. So how is surfing promoting and helping our PTSD and addiction, living with PTSD and addiction?
I think it's actually one of the things that we have to acknowledge in this, and this is very much what my research is focused on. PTSD, addiction, mental health, all these various things, they're not simple conditions, and there is definitely no silver bullet. The worst aspects of PTSD for one person can be quite different to the aspects that another person experiences in terms of PTSD. And one of the reasons that surf therapy seems to be quite effective is it has a range of different mechanisms that actually can approach the different aspects that people face. So we've discussed a few of them on this call. It could be that people really feel they can't escape from flashbacks or depressive thoughts or things like that, and actually being able to go to the beach for 2 hours and knowing for sure when you're in the water you're not going to be bothered with those can be incredibly important. Actually, if anyone wants to read the paper that all three of us are discussing, it is available on the Global Journal of Community Psychology. It's an open access paper, so you don't have to pay to read it. I'm sure we can pop the link up somewhere. But one of the veterans we spoke about how when he was in the water, it was one of the only times he knew he wouldn't have these flashbacks that he had almost every day. It was around a specific incident. And actually getting in the water was one of the first times he learned he could be free of those. And that helped him in his whole progression, because it was learning that actually I can get better, as it were. I can, this is fixable. And that time in the water, the focus we discussed was the thing that led to that. For a lot of other people, PTSD and addiction things we spoke about this again, can be incredibly isolating. And it can be very hard to find the support structures that you need to overcome that isolation. And we've also discussed, I do want to clarify, we're not totally against, we're not against medical intervention stuff. We want to work with doctors, with psychiatrists, to support them. But a lot of the stigma around accessing those services means that people are not willing to get involved. Whereas people just, I'm just going to go down, try this surfing thing down at the beach. There's a lot more. There's a lot easier to access. There's a lot less of that stigma. So potentially then there is access to that social support, to that non-judgmental safe space that they did not otherwise have access. So I'm not really able to answer in terms of the one thing that changes, but surf therapy has all these different pathways that, it is essentially participant-centered healthcare, in that you go and you get out of it, hopefully, what is best for yourself. And it's definitely not a silver bullet, but with all those pathways, it does sort of tailor itself to each individual person. I know I've spoken quite a lot there. If either of the other guys want to jump in on any of that, please do.
I know for myself, I mean, surf therapy is, I mean, to put it simply, it's fun. I mean, when I was out there in my addiction, I lost my love of life. I did not enjoy anything. I really enjoy surfing. It gets me back out there. It gets me in touch with people. It gets me active. It gets me moving. It is fun.
Chris, should we jump on to the next question?
Yeah, I'm gonna switch it to Ben. Has got a great question from Surviver, and I love this question. Ben, go ahead, put it out there.
Yeah, just wanna, and I dropped it on the chat box to everyone, but I'm gonna rephrase that. We serve veterans with PTSD too in our programs, but we also combine them with police officers and other first responders as well. And we do that in one group. So one group can be with veterans, with police officers, and people from the ambulance, paramedics, or firefighters as well. And what we see on the beach, if we put them in a wetsuit, everybody looks quite the same. And the group does not have any problems being around with people from other jobs on the beach. And I know for a fact that in the UK, Surfwell is doing that too, or starting to doing that. And I wonder if that's going to be a thing in the United States as well, because I see a lot of veteran programs. But I wonder if they also kind of combine that with police officers and other first responders as well.
Well, I can answer a little bit of that, Ben. So I am on the inclusion committee for the Manhattan Beach Chamber of Commerce, and we had a very long conversation with the chief of police here in Manhattan Beach in Southern California. And of course, I brought that exact thing up of what is happening with our veterans, and the struggle with PTSD obviously very much crosses over with our first responders. I mean, this is a no-brainer, and it's a formula that absolutely will work. So Ben, to your point, you're right. There are not a lot of programs in the United States centered around first responders, and obviously with what COVID has brought to our attention, and even the civil unrest, is the need for mental health support with our first responders. So police, fire, and now healthcare practitioners that are quite literally on the front lines, to use the terminology of military. So I love that question. Stephen and Nick, I'm sure you know plenty of first responders. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I responded to Ben real quick in the chat. I don't know of any official groups or therapies here in Southern California that's their specific focus, but I totally agree. I mean, we have guys, police officers and other people come to our link ups, and it's great. It's an automatic camaraderie. A lot of them have already served in the service as well. But no, to answer your question, no, I'm not sure, and I don't know of any specific groups here in SoCal. Nick, you?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously super important, just due to the fact that it'll get the first responders involved in their community. Because a lot of the times, you know, they do their job and they go home, and then there's no community involved with what they're doing. So, you know, just especially with the police force. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys know what's going on here with the states. So just having that, you know, having them branch out and to not only help them, but help everybody just to get to know each other on a more personal level.
I'd just like to add, from a point of view of the science as well, and actually, I've not served in the military. I'm not a first responder. I did spend a while after I was in the States in a post-conflict zone in West Africa, where I saw some stuff which was interesting, but basically my own experience of trauma, when I came home, there is definitely, and the research backs this up, there is a language around trauma. And I remember one of the first people I could really speak with it was a friend of mine who was in the British military and went to Afghanistan 3 times. And I remember when I got home and was just talking about the way I felt and things when certain situations happened, it was just like, oh my gosh, this guy gets me. And there is that language, those feelings, those physiological responses you have in a conflict environment, in an emergency environment, in a whatever it may be. There is a language around that if you have experienced it, it is often a lot easier if you connect with other people. You obviously shouldn't only connect with other people who've been through those kinds of experiences, but that language around trauma and the research that backs it up, Ben, I think it's spot on that we are sort of mixing people in who've had these trauma experiences. I know Operation Surf Well in the UK have done that with regards to all the different emergency services, not just the police. But yeah, I really think it's something that should be explored a lot more. Definitely, absolutely.
Jamie, I think you just hit home run with your introduction about what you experienced before. Right, that is why surf therapy does work so well for PTSD. Just right there.
Kristen, Walter, I know you probably hate that I call you out on everything, but obviously your research, Kristen, with our Navy here in Southern California, I'm wondering what you've seen in either the research side or even really just down on the beach. If you wouldn't mind, Kristen chiming in. She's probably like, kill me now.
No,
Thanks.
not at all. Can you hear me?
Thank you.
No, I like always, like this was their presentation, so I wanted to stay out of it. But obviously, I'm a trauma psychologist and I do surf therapy research. So it's very interesting because one of the things we found in our research, so I do trauma-focused therapy and I also see surf therapy, so I kind of get both sides of it. And surf therapy really offers a unique aspect, and Nicholas talked about this, I think, excellently, about that it's simply fun. So one of the things that we know, even in trauma-focused treatment, even when people benefit, one of the residual or lingering symptoms can be this lack of positive emotion that people just don't feel, whether that be depression or PTSD related. And surf therapy seems to really increase positive emotion and the experience of enjoyment in a way that we don't even see in successful psychotherapy. And I like, Jamie, that you had mentioned this before. For our work, 75% of folks are getting some other form of standard care. And so it may very well be the case that surf therapy can be a standalone intervention, but we don't really have the data to support that right now, and we don't know for whom that would benefit. And so for us, surf therapy seems to be an excellent complement to some other forms of care, whether that be psychotherapy or otherwise. And so I think that it can provide that. But surf therapy also can provide what we're trying to do in a therapeutic setting in a way that occurs very naturally. So you have exposure therapy when you're fearful of the water or fearful of the waves, and you kind of work through that and that learning experience. And I think that's been talked about really nicely this morning. We also know that social support is very important for recovery from any mental health disorder. And so that also is provided. And so I think that it provides very unique ways of trying to do even what we try to do therapeutically in a very natural way. And so at a minimum, it's an amazing complement to care. And it could even potentially be a standalone form of care for certain individuals.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even warn her that she was going on. And of course, it's like, boo. Kristen, thank you so much for your work. In the interest of time and respect of everybody, we started a smidge late. I have one more question, and then please reach out to us, send us more questions if you have them. I will happily post this. The recording will be on our YouTube channel, so you'll be able to see all of this. And again, if there's any follow-up questions. The last question I have actually is for Nick. So the part where you were talking about how it doesn't feel like therapy. So Rosala is asking if you can support that statement a little bit further, because you were kind of cutting out a little bit. So that idea about it doesn't feel like therapy, they work with brain injuries, and they're wondering if that experience is regards to surf therapy versus healthcare therapy. So obviously the difference is what Kristen just talked about, but also what we're talking about, those artificial boundaries that you have in therapy. And again, us changing up our couch for a surfboard. So going back to what you said about how it doesn't feel like surf therapy, can you just say that again about and support that a little bit further?
Yeah, sure, of course. So yeah, like, I mean, Chris said it, we change our couch for a surfboard. I mean, that's all it is like when you're sitting on a couch and somebody's asking you all these questions. I mean, sure, it's beneficial, sure, it's great. I don't know this person at all. Why the hell am I telling them my secrets? La da 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 da. I did not enjoy therapy when I did it. I didn't really get that much out of it because I always felt I held something back because, quite frankly, it is a complete stranger and I don't know why I'm talking to this person. Usually it's because I had to talk to this person for some court mandate or the VA was telling me I had to talk to somebody. So when surf therapy came around, I was able to just let loose. Again, back to that fun factor. I had fun. I was building a relationship with somebody. So I'm able to I was building that trust with somebody else. So I'm able to give a little bit more. And each time that grows, with each successful session, each time I hang out with that person, I'm able to share a little bit more because that trust is being formed.
So besides me, what aspect of surf therapy impacted you the most? Just kidding.
Just another community to be involved in. I was so broken after my addiction. I was so alone, so much in despair that I was just searching for something. I mean, I found many things, and this is just another one in my wheelhouse. I love the community. I love the action. I love getting together with people and just getting out in the water, meeting people from all different walks of life, just being out on the board and just talking to some random stranger in the ocean from a freaking country that I don't even know where it's at. You just meet people, and just the connections that you build out of just being in the same place is amazing.
Well, the perfect ending. Yeah, I think it's really special what happens on the beach, as you know, because we don't need to talk about what ails us. We know that everybody down there is going through something. So let's just go surf. I said this almost every session with JMMF. Let's let the healing properties of the ocean and the therapeutic benefits of surfing do their magic, and let's get out of the way of that. So much of what we heard today really resonated with so many people. Again, Stephen Mount, Nick Perdomo, thank you so much. Jamie, you are a rock star. We appreciate the research you're doing. We appreciate the groundbreaking work you're doing, and to have been able to come over here to the US and hang out with these epic human beings. It's just awesome. To everybody who joined us, it's so good to see so many of you. We're so grateful you were here today. I miss you all. Thanks for everything. Again, this will be up on our YouTube channel later this week. And thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. Come back off of mute and say hi and bye.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everybody.
Good to see you, Richard.
Cheers, guys. Thanks very much.
Hi, everybody. Bye, everybody. So good to see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Jamie, Steven, Nick. Thank you, Chris.
Pleasure.
Bye-bye.